Hey everybody, it's Amy Fox with Work in Progress Texas. I am live in our Facebook group to talk about a very anticipated topic, which is basically, I'm going to call it, diets in general, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And if you caught an interview that I did on a whim last week, I interviewed somebody who was part of one of my least favorite nutrition plans. We'll get an honorable mention in today's session. But I figured, one of the things that we haven't done yet is just cover like all of the diets that are out there. And let me just say, like when I started to refresh myself on everything that's out there, it's no wonder that people get overwhelmed because there are thousands and thousands and thousands of diets to choose from. I mean, you just start searching and the pages just go on and go on and go on. So my hope and what I want to accomplish today is trying to kind of like give you a good broad spectrum overview of everything. And you might have had some experience with these, might have had some friends and family try them or whatever. You might be interested in one of them. So I hope to give a good assessment and impression, because when I have said that I have tried every single diet, I'm not joking. That ever since my early 20s, I have tried tons and tons of diet plans. The only two diets that I have not tried or committed to or ever will are on the extremes of one another. I will never try the vegan diet, and I'll get into a reason why. And I've never tried the carnivore diet. And even as somebody who enjoys meat, I do not enjoy meat that much. There's definitely some changes and some modifications to the carnivore diet. There's benefits. We'll kind of get into those details as we break through these diets. But let me start with a couple of disclaimers. My first disclaimer is obviously, take this as an overview assessment from somebody's opinion and experience and what I've seen. So it's just an opinion, right? Take it for what you want. Also, like I said, I've tried everything. So part of this is coming from personal experience. It's not that I have just read an article that dissed something and I'm going in and judging it. I'm literally talking from personal experience as well. And I never really recommend things or discourage things to people unless I have actually had some level of experience or trial with it. And if it's something that I haven't tried and I feel like it's safe for people to try, of course, I would say, go ahead. And that leads into like, I can't stop you from trying any of these nutrition plans, diet plans, whatever you want to call it. Sometimes we have to try things for ourselves to understand what works best for us. And my hope is that we're trying to help you avoid like have all this trial and error or wasting time on things, or maybe you feel like you have spent so much time. So what's the answer? Where does it all come down to? And I'll make sure I wrap it up at the end. And then I will say lastly, that if I talk about something that you think I've misrepresented, or a product or service that you think did not get a fair shot, because I am going to take a stand on some things, I very much welcome an opportunity to interview you in a civil way, respectfully. If you respect me and I respect you, we can have a conversation and talk about, maybe did I get something wrong? Do you have a better interpretation of it? Do you want to defend it? I just wanted to open the door for that opportunity. Because of course, on the internet, everybody can get really comfortable and bash people. Obviously, I'm putting myself out there when I put myself on social media, because there's going to be negativity that will come no matter how nice I try to be or come across. Like, that's going to happen. But I just wanted to open that door. So the outline of the discussion that I'm going through is basically going to be my least favorite diet plans, and then growing to like the, getting, more favored options, and then nutrition plans and a little bit of more detail, and then some honorable mentions. So I'm kind of starting with the ones that I feel are causing harm and need to be called out, and then kind of work my way through some other options that maybe are not necessarily dangerous or hurt your health, but can see why people get stuck in this cycle over and over and over again about not losing weight, not getting body composition goals that they're looking for, etc. So the first nutrition plans that I'm going to put on my bad list is going to be very low calorie diets in general. So we're going to put them all in the same bucket with each other, because guess what? There's more than one, believe it or not. So you've got all kinds of nutrition plans out there. I keep saying nutrition because I've trained myself not to say diet, because diet, there's been such a poor association with it. But these are not nutrition plans. These truly are diets. And very low calorie diets are things like the HCG diet, like cabbage soup diet, cleanses that maybe remove like any kind of food. I'm not talking about juice cleanses necessarily, that's a separate category. And then like the lemon drink that got really popular out there, and like just going with long periods without food, like even maybe fasting being abused in some ways. And then of course, the interview that I did last Thursday went in detail about Optavia and how that is one of my least favorite nutrition plans, quote unquote diets, being that it's super, super low calorie. So on the HCG diet, for example, you are being monitored by a physician in some ways. I think there's usually a specialist involved because there's an injection that has to be done in order to get the hormone. If there's anything different, let me know. But I do have articles that I'll share with you guys, that all the research that I did just to refresh myself on the details. But basically you are at least monitored. And if I would say anything, super, super low calorie diets should be monitored by a physician. If somebody's going to try one of those, it's really important that they are monitored. And that's the problem with Optavia, for example, or just going and doing cabbage soup or lemon drinks, is you're not being monitored by a physician. You don't have a certified specialist or somebody who is, they literally most of the time tried the plan, had success, and then became a coach and got certified in that specific category and how to sell that specific product. Here's the bottom line. Obviously, we broke down Optavia. There's other things you can get into the details. So not to make this too long-winded overall, because we could talk for hours on so many things here. But let's just talk about why I've put very low calorie on my the worst list ever. And part of that is because first off, Optavia is a lot of processed foods, and we'll get into some of that in the next category too. But bottom line is it hurts your metabolism. It changes your basal metabolic rate. So basically, I know Mike Milner always says we have a certain amount of calories that we burn just to keep the lights on, like our brains, our heart function, our breathing. Like when you're sitting around literally doing nothing, there is a specific calorie burn that happens. When you keep putting yourself in super, super low calorie diet plans over and over and over again, because people go back to them because they did lose some weight. And so then they think that when they gain the weight back or gain more weight, that they failed, they need to go back to how they originally lost fat or muscle, because that's the other problem, right? Is you're losing fat and muscle with this kind of stuff. It's not, it's not the most ideal focus on fat loss per se. So basically what happens is if you start out normally burning 2,000 calories by doing nothing, on average with some maybe studies, and take studies and research as a grain of salt because everything has a bias, but they see that your ability to burn calories is reduced. So you could start out at 2,000 calories doing just as you are. And then because you put yourself in this stressed out state with a very, very low calorie diet, then it bumps it down to 1,500 calories. So you can see how people, when they start to come out of these diets, which is very, very challenging to do, why they put on the weight again, because their maintenance calories have changed. So it's extremely hard to get out of low calorie without putting the weight on. Also, rapid weight loss like that means that your skin is not going to adapt and adjust with you as you lose weight. There's actual benefits to slowly losing weight because your skin actually has some time to respond to it too. Now, obviously, if you've been morbidly obese, severely overweight, stretched skin is a part of that, unfortunately. And we obviously know that sometimes you need surgical intervention to bring that back together, depending on how much weight you actually gained. So, sometimes surgery is needed, but in the average person who's trying to lose 10, 20, 30 pounds or whatever, you want that elasticity in your skin to last. And so some slowing down of that is a good thing. I'm pretty confident a lot of these diets came around with the obesity clinics, people ready for bariatric surgery. Another reason why it should be monitored by a doctor. There's a certain point where your health is in jeopardy when you have too much fat on your body and you've gotten into such an unhealthy state. It's hard on your and everything. And we know that obesity definitely is connected to a lot of chronic diseases that are out there. So I can see the urgency in trying to get somebody to lose weight, especially if you're getting them ready for surgery. But to me, it just shouldn't be a part of the masses. And the scary thing is, a lot of these plans, you're getting a plan to follow, but you're not learning new behaviors. And that's going to be the recurring theme in a couple of these things that we touch on, because if you're not learning new behaviors, what happens when you don't keep doing the diet? you're going to fall off the wagon or whatever, and then gain the weight back. But bottom line, low calorie diets hurt your metabolism. A lot of the times, highly processed foods, you feel like a failure if you gain the weight back when really it's not your fault. It's the fact that you restricted your body so much. Your body was just trying to protect yourself. And I just absolutely despise them and will always stand up against them. I think they're wrong and they're doing more harm than good. And the whole goal is with a lot of these plans is to keep you coming back. And that's how they keep making money, you know. So the next category, which is kind of a little bit of a relation to Optavia, was meal plans like Nutrisystem or Jenny Craig. Just like Optavia, Nutrisystem and like Jenny Craig's style of eating has highly processed foods that you are basically nuking in the microwave. I don't know if they are able to be heated up in the oven. Maybe that's an option. That would definitely be a safer way to do it. Microwaves are not necessarily the best, healthiest way to cook things. We definitely try to avoid using them as much as possible. Usually try to reheat in the oven or the stove if possible. Now, if you're in the lunchroom at work, you have to reheat something, nuke something. It's not the end of the world. I'm not trying to, vilify a microwave, but ideally, naturally reheating things is fine. So again, the problem with a meal plan being created for you is you're not learning to cook. You're not teaching yourself how to prepare your own meals. I could say one benefit of them is that you're getting them delivered to your house. It's easy. It's quick. And if you were to start paying attention to what's being delivered to you, you could start to kind of learn, what is in the meal dish? Can I remake that on my own? So I will at least give them credit that it's a starting point for a lot of people. And maybe some people just need that as that first initial push. The challenge is that it's highly processed. You're still not learning behaviors if you're not paying attention to what's being in there, being combined in the dish. And then everybody kind of gets that same plan. So it's not necessarily catered to you and your needs or your tastes all of the time. And a lot of the times it's still very low calorie or very low protein. So it could still be putting you in a bigger deficit than you actually need, which is very common in a lot of nutrition plans. Now, there are some meal plans out there like Trifecta, for example. That's getting a lot of popularity on Instagram. You're seeing a lot of maybe CrossFit people or bodybuilders who are promoting this specific meal delivery service. So I'm sure there are meal delivery services out there that have more macro-friendly meals, or maybe you heat them up in the oven as opposed to the microwave. You might even have like a small business that does that too. There are businesses and services. Like I'm all about saving time. I'm all about like using curbside at the grocery store or Instacart or Amazon Fresh in situations to save time. I completely understand like not being able to trying to make the grocery store easier. That's different than an actual meal plan being sent to you. But there are companies out there who are making healthier options that are reheated in the oven. So my recommendation is, yes, I don't know price comparison on like Nutrisystem and Jenny Craig versus like Trifecta. I'd be very curious to do a price comparison on them. But ideally, the processed foods where you're just nuking it, the lean cuisine meals, like all of that stuff is just it's not real food. It's been so highly processed that you're not getting enough micronutrients and macronutrients. So not a recommendation, but not necessarily the end of the world either. I mean, if you were to take those nutrition plans and try to learn from them, maybe it's a starting point, but I'm still not going to favor it because it's still not teaching you your own habits. And I have some articles to link there with some more detail on those plans. Okay. So we did super low calorie. We did the delivery meals coming to your door, convenience, of course, and the marketing with all of that stuff, rapid weight loss, lots of testimonials. It's very attractive marketing. It makes sense, but ultimately, if you're trying to change your behaviors, it's hard if everything is handed to you and you don't have to do anything on your own, even though that's another struggle, I'm sure, for many of us as we're making healthier choices is, taking the effort, but there's ways to do that. Right? We can do that. We absolutely can do that. That's why I have a job. The next category. Okay. Love-hate relationship. Love-hate relationship. Okay. Network marketing, multi-level marketing, AKA used to be pyramid schemes, right? Okay. Here's the thing. There are network marketing companies out there that were not good. Okay. There were bad compensation plans. I think there was like a legging company or something that got a really bad reputation or whatever. Like they were screwing over their people that worked for them. Right. So there are certain network marketing companies that do not have great compensation plans. But there are a lot of network companies out there that do. And obviously, how do you grow in one of those companies? You find other people to work under you who want to sell the product or service as well. And then your team grows, therefore your commission grows, et cetera. And so there's two different categories here. There's obviously network marketing companies that have products like shampoos or beauty. For example, I'm with Beauty Counter. Let's just call it what it is. Beauty Counter is direct sales. It's still a network marketing style, but you don't have to be connected to a consultant. So you can still go onto Beauty Counter's website and buy stuff on your own. You don't have to be associated with anyone. That's one of the reasons why I was okay with it necessarily. In Beachbody, which I will touch on some Beachbody styles of eating, same kind of thing, right? You sell a Shakeology, you make money off of challenge packs, you add more people to your coaching team, and you make commission off of adding more coaches and products. Okay, so I don't really have a problem with that. Like if people want to do network marketing companies, I just never liked it. And so I backed out of it, and I struggle to support anything like that. It's just a tricky subject, but ultimately there are a lot of supplements and potions and magic beans that are being sold to people as a way to lose weight. Now, I am all about supplementation. Personally, I think you still need to get tested to see what you need or what your body is deficient in. There are some things that we could supplement with on a regular basis: whey protein or vegan protein, creatine, fish oil, maybe vitamin D, but I still think you should get your levels checked. Magnesium, vitamin C, like a couple of things. Like I think beef organs or animal organs would be really smart, because it's like a natural multivitamin almost. But the problem with multi-level marketing companies that promote supplementation is a lot of times they have claims that they're going to help you lose weight. So we're going to keep it focused here on losing weight, because that's what the topic, that's what this whole Facebook group is about. And that's where I struggle. I struggle to see posts where this person drank this and this changed their life. And it's kind of like, really? Are you sure? I mean, I took Shakeology for 2 years. I drank Plexus for a year. I've taken supplements. And did I notice any difference? Did I notice anything in my weight or my, no? Maybe did I have more energy? I don't know. But ultimately, a lot of the times those supplements have been complemented with a lifestyle change too. And I like when companies kind of talk about both, like, hey, this was a stepping stone, because it's okay if a supplement has resulted in potentially some other habits that you change in your life, and that was part of it. So be it, right? But I don't like those claims that it's going to help you lose weight, because that's a calorie deficit is what's going to help you lose weight, not some magic beans that you choke down or put on your food or whatever, however you take it. Now, there are companies out there like Arbonne, for example, a very popular supplement company, has greens, has protein powders. If this stuff is being worked into your nutrition plan and you feel great using it, awesome. That's great. That's wonderful. But ultimately, like, sometimes supplementation can be playing against maybe some of the issues that you have. And that's why you should really work with your doctor to see, like, hey, am I deficient in something? Do I need this? There's so many products out there that have pre and probiotics in it. And do you know that those can counteract some issues that you might be having? And I know this from experience, because I literally was being tested for hormones, all of this other stuff. And my nurse practitioner was like, hey, there's this prebiotic probiotic combination in these greens that you're taking, and it's absolutely playing against your gut issues. And you would think, oh, that would be playing for my gut issues. No, it was playing against them. So that's when I started to realize, wait a second, that makes sense. You don't know what you need. And that's the problem with a lot of these supplement companies, the ketones, the Plexus, the Arbonnes, the whatever, all the Shakeology, like, it might just be magic beans. And a lot of the times it can be expensive. Now, if anyone in network marketing wants to come at me and defend their product, again, I welcome that. But when it comes to fat loss in particular, your claims of your supplement being the magic sauce to something is crap. And I'm done with it. I'm over it. It's really coming back to your nutrition plan, your sleep, your stress, your hydration, your exercise plan, your lifestyle choices. there's more to it than the supplementation that you're paying for. If you want to be on it, fine, go for it. But if it could be something that you're wasting your money on too. And I'm all about optimizing your funds, especially these days. Like, we want to make sure we're spending our money well. And I have no problem supporting friends who are in those businesses or whatever. Like I said, it's a love-hate relationship, because I see some things that I don't like, and then there's some other things that are great. And I've met a lot of great people in those communities. So just be very, very careful with adding a bunch of supplementation or supplements that claim things, especially when it comes to weight loss, and then consider getting tested first before you actually introduce something into your system. There is a reason why the label says check with your doctor. Do I trust every single doctor that's out there too? No, not necessarily, but ideally a functional medicine doctor would be great. Okay, next category is going to be kind of in one bucket. It's like calorie counting, Weight Watchers, portion control containers, Noom, 2B Mindset, even MyFitnessPal by itself, right? Because MyFitnessPal has actually been created to, in a sense, be a coach for you too. And the problem with a lot of these calorie counting world, Weight Watchers, portion control containers, and so on, is that they still don't know your situation and your life. So they're putting some data into a computer and figuring out what your calorie count needs to be, or your portion control containers need to be, or how many points you get in a day, right? Those are the kinds of different calorie counting styles. I will say 2B Mindset, part of Beachbody, so Ultimate Portion Fixes, portion control containers, and 2B Mindset are their 2 nutrition plans. I don't think they've added anything since I left. 2B Mindset I actually really liked, because it was how to build your plate, and it's created by a registered dietitian, and I think she's great. Gosh, I forget her name, Alana. I could tag her later, but she's got great recipes on there, and I really liked how to build your plate. So I put it in the same category because it's portion control, really. And I think what I like about these options is it's bringing awareness around how much you're eating. What are you eating? You're keeping track of it, right? Like, there's a tracking system that's being created, and we are all about tracking and writing things down and being aware of what you're putting in your mouth, because ultimately for fat loss, that really does matter. There's different techniques and styles. But I saw my mom suffer with Weight Watchers for years. And I say that because a lot of what these low calorie counting systems are, again, they're putting you in a larger calorie deficit than you probably need to be. Usually it's still too low of protein compared to what you should be consuming for longevity. It can create body dysmorphia or issues with the scale, obsessions with the scale focus, and that if you gain a couple of pounds, you really get upset and put down. Like, Weight Watchers is all about the scale. So if you gain weight, it's your fault. You did something wrong. And I've gone into these Facebook groups to see what kind of information is being shared. And those are the things. Like, there's been some talk of maintenance, calories in some of these conversations, but it can really create an anxiety around food. You're being coached in kind of a group setting. If you are getting any coaching, it's still not customized to, you specifically. There is some wiggle room because you're still picking what you want to eat. So you are still, in a sense, choosing the things that you want to eat. But it's just really easy for it to be too big of a calorie deficit, low protein, too much of a focus on the scale, and just keeping you in the cycle. And the biggest beef I have with it is that they don't teach you how to get out of the calorie deficit. That's one of the most important parts. They also don't check to see if you've already been under eating. The most popular thing that we come up against is people who have been chasing a diet for decades or for years or for a whole year plus. And you're not checking to see, is that person even ready for a calorie deficit? I mean, if they've been eating in a deficit, what would putting them and keeping them in a deficit with a specific plan do? It's not. Your body is going to adapt to it. Your metabolism is going to slow down. And if you're not being coached how to get out of it, you're going to gain the weight back. So that's a problem, right? So that's why people keep going back to Weight Watchers. I think even Lois might have mentioned it last week, saying it was like with Weight Watchers, there's people that come back like 6 times or something like that. And like, that's a terrible statistic. It's a terrible statistic to keep people longer, keep people coming back. That means that they're gaining the weight and they think that going back to this diet plan is going to help them again, when it's really continuing to make it worse long term. And the whole thing is like, if you have to keep going back to a diet, did it really work? I don't know. I don't think so. So with MyFitnessPal or any kind of food tracking app that's out there, again, the biggest thing is the numbers are so horrible. Like, when I have people that go into our coaching program and they get their macros from MyFitnessPal, I always have to tell them, ignore MyFitnessPal, wait until I give them your macros, ignore it because it's going to be so much of a bigger deficit and it's wrong. It's just wrong. So those are the main kind of like diets that I want to put like caution, like low calorie diets, caution, meal plan, caution, calorie counting, etc., portion control. There's some pros and cons to every single one of those, more cons to the first two options and less to the calorie counting, portion control kind of thing. So now we kind of get into a certain nutrition plan, a style of eating, okay? So like paleo, keto, carnivore, vegan, like at this point, we're getting to a place where you're actually removing large food groups. So a lot of this can be initially like the paleo community, I think kind of created this major uproar. And I admit my first certification was through Primal Blueprint because it's really kind of talking about, hey, how did our ancestors eat? You know, if you look at our country and how we've declined in health over the years and we've continued to get more unhealthy and more overweight, what is the reason for that? And so you can see how paleo kind of came from, well, what did our ancestors eat? You know, probably plants, a certain level of plants. They definitely ate meat. I know that paleo removes grains and bread products or whatever, and I'm sorry, but if you've read the Bible, I mean, there's bread in there. I mean, Jesus broke bread. So it's, you know, there's still a caveman look to it, or just kind of more ancestral, like what did people eat back in the day? And I like that approach because you're talking about trying to remove super processed foods. You're talking about removing sugars, alcohol, like just trying to control things. So what people are doing is they're following a food list, right? You basically have this food list to choose from, and it's going to be restrictive, especially if you've never done it and you're not used to it. So some people can get in the paleo primal community, just eat that way, and they enjoy it and they love it. And maybe they have some times where they go off plan a little bit or whatever, but maybe they are truly diehard people. And then on the flip side, there's that vegan vegetarian world. And my beef, no pun intended, with the vegan world is it, to me, honestly, it's kind of a privileged way of eating. And I might get slapped in the face for that. But it's real, unless you're like in the jungle, truly eating a vegetarian or vegan diet, like there are so many processed foods and so many replacements for it, but you need factories and you need machinery and you need processed food plants to create those artificial things. Like to me, why would you eat chicken nuggets that are plant-based if you don't want to eat meat? Why would you want to taste something that tastes like meat? I don't understand that. So honestly, genuinely, someone can explain to me, like, why would you eat like the plant, what's the stupid Beyond Meat if you're avoiding meat? Like, aren't you avoiding meat because you don't want to, because there's obviously a part of you that, you know, it doesn't want animals to be hurt, right? So the vegan agenda or a vegan direction or a vegetarian direction can be a result of that, right? So I was a vegetarian for 2 years because I watched a lot of documentaries that wrecked me, right? Like they're terrible. And I am not an advocate for factory farming. I am not an advocate for animals being harmed in any way. I want them to live a happy life and be killed quickly. Okay, but it's just one of those things where you've got to do your research to really make sure it's a fair comparison to what's happening. So I've got relatives in the cattle industry. I've got people that I know that are farmers and things that have been, taken out of context through, a bias in a documentary, right? So you have to be careful on both sides. So, but my biggest thing with the vegan world is there's deficiencies that happen. There's vitamin D3, folate, zinc, iron, B12, omega-3, essential fatty acids that you are missing when you go full on vegan. So you have to supplement with that to make up for those deficiencies. So to me, any kind of diet that creates deficiencies is a problem. So to be fair to vegans, on the flip side, like the keto diet, for example, that's dominantly a high-fat diet with some protein in there. There can be deficiencies on like folate, biotin, selenium, vitamin A, vitamin E, vitamin D, chromium, iodine, and magnesium. So let me be fair that when you're removing major food groups from your diet, you will be deficient in vitamins and minerals of some point on either side. And that's another kind of issue with the keto diet. High fat works really well. It obviously evolved from, helping people with epilepsy and preventing seizures. My mom was very successful on the keto diet, lost a lot of weight, but now she lost too much weight. She lost muscle, and she's, she's much, much skinnier, but she's, having to recover some of that muscle mass that she's lost. So it has, she's kind of worked her way out of the keto diet a little bit, having some more carbohydrates in there and some higher protein content, and has had to kind of try to figure out how to eat again, So the challenge with those kinds of plans, these big plans where you're working off of a food list, is it is very restrictive. If you can eat like that for the rest of your life, then so be it. I mean, ultimately, what all of this comes down to is what can you do for the rest of your life? And then all we have to do is adjust how much, basically. That's the main foundation if we were to kind of generalize everything. But those can be really, really tricky. They kind of align with low carb, high fat, or high fat, low carb diets. Like, you can kind of work those in with the paleo vegan world or whatever, because obviously in the vegan world, it's going to be a higher carb diet. So you just kind of have to figure out how to balance out the fats and the carbs, because your fats and your carbs are going to be your energy sources. So really, we want you to hit your protein goals, and make sure that you're balancing out the rest with your protein, with your carbs and fat. So there is a gal that I do follow on Instagram who is vegan all the way, and she's got she does a macro style of eating, and she's definitely ripped. So it is possible. I know I've got my own personal biases about it, but it is possible to get enough protein in. You just have to be very intentional and plan, and try to reduce processed foods as much as possible. On the flip side, I mean, keto carnivore, there have been lots of things that those diets have helped heal, like skin issues and other ailments. I mean, if you follow Carnivore MD or Sean Baker, they're kind of like the loudest voices when it comes to the carnivore world, the extremes on there. Obviously, keto has gotten a lot of attention. My biggest thing is really like, what's your purpose for doing one of those? If you truly are convicted about animal rights, first off, I would recommend a book, Sacred, oh crap, I'm forgetting it right now in the moment here. I will post it. I think you do your research on everything to make sure that everything is, aligned, not to get too, into the weeds there, but they can be very, very challenging for a lot of people, but they've been around for a lot. We hear a lot about them, so they needed to be brought up because it is a nutrition plan. And the way that people are losing weight on these things is, of course, again, controlling their caloric consumption. I mean, if you're eating keto, it's actually hard to eat a lot of food because you feel so satiated. So you're naturally going into a calorie deficit. In fact, I'd love to ask my friend who has been increasing her calories on a more keto carnivore diet, trying to get back to maintenance calories. I should ask her how she's been doing. It's taken a while. And I feel like part of that is because you are feeling so full and satiated. You have to be very, very intentional about your food and getting it in time for the day. So honorable mentions, about to wrap up here. Honorable mentions would be things like autoimmune protocols, elimination plans, gluten-free, dairy-free, FODMAP, low histamine. And one of the more popular elimination diets is going to be Whole30. Whole30 got the reputation of weight loss because people were experiencing weight loss as a result of reducing inflammatory foods in their diets. So it's one of the most popular elimination diets because there's so many resources, there's support groups, and even Melissa Hartwig, or she might have a different name like now, but she was a co-founder of Whole30, and she always said this is never meant to be a diet. It was never meant to have fat loss. But when you remove grains, dairy, legumes, sugar, alcohol, seed oils for 30 days, people were seeing a weight loss. And actually, it was the very first nutrition plan I started when after David and I got married, and we were finally at our max of like over 200 pounds for myself. And he was, I think, probably closer to 230-ish or so. That was the first plan that I did, just kind of like almost like as a natural detox, right? Like it was like, okay, I'm gonna just get rid of the inflammatory foods. And that's how I lost like 20 pounds, was following a Whole30 style. And I didn't stick with it because it's extremely challenging. Unless you absolutely love eating that way, it's really, really hard to stick with it. Because again, it comes back down to what can you do long term. Now, with elimination diets, most of the time, the reason that you're removing things is because you have migraines, foggy brain, skin issues, gut issues. You've worked with a functional medicine doctor. Maybe you guys have tried all other supplementation that's been prescribed, that's actually been tested. That's another thing about supplementation, is it should have third-party testing to make sure it's legit. You know, you've exhausted everything, or maybe you are seeing a functional medicine doctor and they're like, we need to do this first before we do anything else, kind of thing. And so usually there's a purpose behind those nutrition plans, maybe even some juice fasts that are out there that might be prescribed or given by a specialist, because you're trying to figure out, is something going on? Do I have a food sensitivity? And sometimes you do need to remove things for a period of time to truly test it. Most of the time, elimination diets that are really prescribed from a doctor are going to be 3 to 6 months long. Like, it's a significant amount of time to really make sure it gets out of your system. Most people can accomplish a lot within the 30 days. That's why a Whole30 can be very successful. It's just very important that when you reintroduce foods, that you do them one at a time. You want to make sure that you're really monitoring when you bring it back in, what do you experience in your body? You know, and those, they deserve an honorable mention because they kind of get thrown in there into nutrition and diet. But ultimately, again, what it comes down to is, what can you stick long term? Are you eating enough to maintain your muscle? Are you ready for a calorie deficit? And then usually based off of your maintenance calories, your deficit should be, you know, no more than like 500, maybe 700 calories from your maintenance. Like, we want to make sure we stick within a healthy window. And what a lot of these other diets are doing is creating a much larger deficit, like 800 plus calorie deficit, a lot of the times creating a lot of problems. Side note, I will talk about, 75 hard, boot camps, Orange Theory, that's more like in the exercise world, which we could maybe do an exercise conversation is similar to this. I bring up 75 hard because I know we had somebody mention that or ask about 75 hard, and the reason probably why is because there was part of the rule was like, you stick to a diet and you just, whatever that diet is, you stick to it for 75 days. But that, I think I'm going to put that more in like an extreme exercise category, just as an FYI. I don't think so. Really, that's probably all of them. So again, we talked about low calorie diets, meal plans like Nutrisystem and Jenny Craig, multi-level marketing supplementation or programs, calorie counting, portion control containers, style of eating, and then the food lists, basically like paleo, keto, carnivore style, and then the honorable mentions, which is dominantly the elimination plan. Like, all of this, just again, like, I'm just covering the surface on some of these. These are like the main ones that I've experienced, is the main one that I have done. I've also done the fast metabolism diet, the South Beach diet, the zone diet, like all of this stuff. So then you might be thinking like, well, what are we supposed to do? What works, right? So first off, you know, what it comes down to is, what do you like and you enjoy? What do you know that you need to be better in? Because here's the thing, like, we know that like vegetables aren't that great, but we've got to figure out maybe some vegetables in there. I don't really eat a lot of vegetables, honestly. I eat some, but fruit is dominant where I focus on. So we want to focus on like quality. I'm always going to be a proponent for protein. My advice to you is always focus on protein content first. Whatever your goal body weight is, that should be about the grams of protein that you're consuming. We should talk about like quality, you know, buying from your local farmers markets. Think of foods that came from nature, the best that you can, like berries, plants, shellfish, fish, poultry, beef, plants of all kinds, whatever you can tolerate, legumes, you know, beans and all that stuff, if you can tolerate those. Everyone is different sensitivities. You know, if you're okay eating pastas and breads of the current gluten world, you know, because obviously gluten's been so manipulated, so be it. Have your breads. It's more about the amount, and that's where again the calorie counting world can come in. Okay, but this is why I'm a big proponent of macros. And I'm not a big proponent of like, if it fits your macros. That was a very popular thing because we were seeing a lot of people that were eating super unhealthy, like eating a bunch of Pop-Tarts or whatever and counting that towards their macros. And sure, that can absolutely help somebody get body composition. But if we're talking about not only fat loss, body composition, but also overall health, That's where we're trying to reduce processed foods. We're trying to reduce sugar. We're trying to reduce alcohol. And then from there, it's just like, okay, what do you eat? We need proteins, fats, and carbs to survive, right? Like you can basically survive without carbs. You don't have to have carbs, but we want carbs, okay? Your body is very smart and very intelligent. It wants carbs. But if you had to go without carbs and could only eat meats or whatever, you believe it or not, you would survive, aka carnivore. We obviously want to get, if we can buy organic fruits and vegetables, that's ideal. There's the Dirty Dozen from the Environmental Working Group list. Maybe I can like sync that here in the chat. Let me do EWG. I'll make sure that's in the comments. It's just very easy to get overwhelmed with all of the nutrition plans that are out there. And the reason that I wanted to talk about it is because I see, again, people jumping from diet to diet to diet and failing again and again and again, and being frustrated and wanting to throw their hands up. And I get it because I've been there. I've struggled with it. Once I figured out what are the foods that I like, then we started making them. We started rotating them. Yes, I do macro counting. Yes, we want to watch our caloric intake. Yes, that matters. I want to make sure I'm eating enough. When I'm in a deficit, I want to make sure that I'm staying in a deficit. You have to do some kind of tracking and measuring, and that's where, again, I can appreciate the calories. But for long-term health, for building muscle, protein is going to be important. Amounts are going to be important. And working with a coach is how you can refine what it is that you need in your life instead of wasting money on memberships or magic beans or whatever else. Again, if you want to try any of this stuff, if something attracts you, and there's always going to be outliers, there's always going to be people that have success with these and are going to just go on and teach it and think it's wonderful, and that's great. In my experience, I want people to eat what they enjoy and control the amounts and figure out what amount is best for them with whatever stage of life they're in. And that's going to change as you age and as you grow and as you get stronger and as you sleep and as you lose weight. All that's going to change. So curious to hear, like, again, I've been preparing for this. I tried to do enough research. I tried to summarize as much as I could. I realized I'm going much longer than I normally do because there's just so much to cover. But if you have any questions, concerns, you need help, you want more information, please let me know. If you've got feedback, good, the bad, the ugly, I can take it. I've been trying to create a thick skin. I really appreciate you watching and participating. And thank you so much for your time. And I hope that you have a great evening.